On a cold December evening in 1773, as the sun fell over Boston Harbor, the American colonies stood on the edge of a rebellion that would change world history. What happened that night? The Boston Tea Party is often remembered as a simple act of protest. But the real story is far more complex, filled with political pressure, secret meetings, dangerous defiance, and a growing belief that freedom was worth fighting for. For more than a decade, tensions between the American colonists and the British government had been rising. The French and Indian War had left Britain deeply in debt, and Parliament looked to the colonies as a convenient source of revenue. The Stamp Act, Townshend Acts, and other taxes struck the colonists as unfair because they had no representation in Parliament. The slogan that echoed through the streets, "No taxation without representation," captured the growing sense of injustice. By 1773, Parliament passed the Tea Act, giving the British East India Company a monopoly on tea sales in the colonies. Though the act made tea cheaper, that was not the point. Colonists believed accepting this tea meant accepting Parliament's right to tax them whenever it wished. Many refused to do so. Boston, already a hotbed of resistance, became the center of the struggle. Samuel Adams, the fiery leader of the Sons of Liberty, organized meetings at Faneuil Hall and the Old South Meeting House, urging citizens not to allow a single crate of taxed tea to be unloaded on American soil. When 3 tea ships, the Dartmouth, Eleanor, and Beva, arrived in Boston Harbor in late November, the crisis boiled over. The law was clear. Once the ships had entered the harbor, they had 20 days to unload their cargo, or the governor could order it seized and sold. If the tea was unloaded, the tax would be paid. If it remained on the ships, the vessels would be forced to return to England. But Governor Thomas Hutchinson, determined to enforce British authority, refused to allow the ships to leave. The impasse pushed Boston to the breaking point. On the evening of December 16, 1773, more than 5,000 colonists packed into the Old South Meeting House, the largest building in the colonies. They debated for hours, desperate for a solution. But when word arrived that Hutchinson again refused to let the ships depart, Samuel Adams stood and declared, "This meeting can do nothing more to save the country." It was a signal. Outside, a group of men, some members of the Sons of Liberty, others ordinary citizens, began to move with purpose. Many disguised themselves as Mohawk Indians, not to impersonate Native Americans, but to symbolize their emerging American identity and to protect their identities from prosecution. Around 100 men marched toward Griffin's Wharf. The December wind was sharp. And the harbor was coated with thin ice, but the men worked quickly. They boarded the ships, surprising the captains, but harming no one. Their aim was not violence, it was resistance. For nearly 3 hours, they hacked open 342 chests of tea with axes and hatchets and dumped them into the harbor. The smell of tea filled the air as the water turned dark. Crowds gathered on the shore, watching silently but approvingly. The men swept the decks clean afterward to show their act was not thefted, was protest. By morning, the news had spread throughout the colonies. Some celebrated, others feared Britain's response. That response came swiftly and harshly. Parliament passed the coercive acts, known in America as the Intolerable Acts, closing Boston Harbor, dissolving local assemblies, and placing Massachusetts under strict British control. Instead of breaking the rebellion, these actions united the colonies more strongly than ever. By 1774, the First Continental Congress gathered in Philadelphia, marking the first step toward a unified American government. Less than 2 years later, the colonies declared independence. The Boston Tea Party was not the largest act of protest in history, nor was it the first. But its impact echoed around the world. It showed that ordinary people, merchants, farmers, craftsmen, could challenge one of the most powerful empires on earth. The real story is this: the Boston Tea Party was not just about tea, it was about principle. It was the moment when the colonists declared, with unmistakable clarity, that freedom mattered more than fear. And from that night in Boston Harbor, the road to the American Revolution became unstoppable.